Oh my gosh, every single runner knows about this problem, and that problem is the first.
I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
Hey guys, Rob Huang here from Fearless Within. Wow, do I have a very interesting video for you guys today. So last year, I did not run at all. Literally the only cardio I was doing was from my home to the grocery store. But all of that changed when I met someone who is a running master, aka my father-in-law. Now this guy has run so many marathons in his life. He even hosts marathons regularly. He's been running for probably over 20 years, and he taught me all the secrets that I need to know about running. So in this video, I'm going to share all these secrets that he taught me. So I'm going to teach you so you can possibly go from nothing to running a marathon. So guys, a little disclaimer, I'm not a health professional. Anything you learn from me in this video is purely my advice. And going from 0 to running a marathon in 2.5 months is something that probably most people can't do. I have a lifting background. I've been lifting for 7 or 8 years. That's a long time. So if you are literally coming from 0, if you have no experience at all, I highly recommend taking it a bit slower and following one of the programs I'm about to tell you in this video. And that really leads me with tip number 1. Boil the water. Now, boil the water means that, you know, when you grab a pot of water, you put it on the stove and you turn the heat on, you got to kind of wait some minutes before the water actually turns to boiling. Similarly with running, I know if you start running, you just want to run like an F9, you want to just dominate and be the fastest speed demon out there, but it's okay, it's totally okay if you're slow. Even some old ladies I see passing me by on the track, and sometimes I felt ashamed when I started out. But don't feel like that. It's totally okay to be slow. In fact, you have to be slow when you first run. And if you're not slow, you might actually injure yourself. And that's my experience. That's exactly what my marathon Sifu told me. He's had a lot of injuries. He's learned a lot. So when I was running with him, like when we got up in the morning, we were super, super slow. How slow? I mean, literally, you can probably speed walk faster than us. But we were going very slow starting out. And that actually led me to increasing my distance over the long term, because I eventually got up to a pace where I can run longer distances, although slow, but that really helped me to achieve running a marathon. Okay, step number 2 is your running form. Now, running form is super crucial, but I'm going to go through 3 things that you can fix right now with your running to help you get the best form you can. The first part of your running form is cadence. So cadence is basically the amount of steps you take in 1 minute. Your ideal cadence should probably be around 160 steps per minute. Now, when I was running, my running Sifu taught me that taking very, very small steps was the ideal running pace. In fact, whenever I took very long paces, he would scold me and say, hey, you're doing it wrong, you're gonna get injured. And that's really the truth. The longer your stride, which is the distance between your steps, the higher your injury rate could potentially be, because you're really stretching out your muscles further than they're normally used to. So yeah, I would test your cadence. If your cadence is not 160 or more, if you're taking super long strides, I would just take smaller steps. And smaller steps overall in the long term will have you running healthier and also faster. The second thing about your form is your foot strike. So some people say you should land on your heel. Some people say you should land on the ball of your foot. Which one is right? The truth is there's no right running form. If you look at people who are sprinters or running super elite marathons, these guys are actually running all different kinds of ways. They're not landing only with their heel, only with the ball of their foot. Each person is individual. So the myth that you should not land on your heel comes from a lot of beginners making this crucial mistake. And that mistake is when they're running, their foot is too far out ahead of their body. So imagine these are your feet. This foot is way too far out and it lands right here. That's when the heel strike occurs, because their heel, if you can imagine, is hitting the ground right at this spot. But that can lead to a lot of injury, guys. So the ideal foot strike is when you're running to be right on the center of your body when you land your foot. So imagine you're running here, your foot's out, great, and then boom, that's your landing position. So your center of gravity is basically vertical. If your center of gravity is too far, you'll end up with that heel strike that's unnatural, and then you might get injured. And the third tip is your posture. Now, I got scolded so many times because I had a forward lean when I was running, guys. You might think this is okay, but if you're running marathon or long distances, probably not a good idea because your posture should be very straight. Your ideal running posture, especially for easy or medium runs, should be, imagine you're lifting your head up on a piece of string. So very, very straight, your back is straight, and then your chest is sticking upright. So just pull your shoulders back and then keep running like that. So you're gonna have a completely straight posture. As a special side note, especially for beginners, if you start to run, like you say you're 2-3 miles in, and then you start to see your running form break down, I would definitely dial it down a bit. You don't have to go so fast, so focus on your form first. That's the most important thing to avoid injury. Now, step number 3 is to perfect your breath. A lot of people don't really know how to breathe while they're running. Maybe they just breathe through the nose or only through their mouth. The ideal method to breathe is actually kind of weird. It's not normal. And that method is simply to breathe through your nose and mouth at the same time while you're running. So both airways contract. So when you're breathing through your nose and mouth, you actually intake a lot more air than just breathing through your nose or your mouth only. But for most people, just breathing through your nose in and out through your mouth is pretty much okay for normal or easy jogs. But if you're going for the maximum effort, if you want the max power and max oxygen available to your body, nose and mouth is probably the best. You should also use the 1-2-3 method of breathing depending on how difficult your run is. So if you're running really fast, you're running a sprint or something like that, breathe in once and out once for every step that you take. So for your normal everyday runs, you probably want to aim for 2 steps for each 1 breath in. So imagine you're taking 2 steps while you breathe in, 1, 2, and then 2 steps while you're breathing out, 1, 2. And then you're going to repeat that, 2 steps in, 2 steps for 1 breath, 2 steps for 1 breath out. And for your easier runs, you might want to do 3 steps for each breath in, 3 steps for each breath out. All right, guys, so the next step is to stretch or not to stretch. What should you do? Well, I turned to science for this one, and I tried to find some sort of science that said that stretching was good, but actually I found that a lot of static stretching is not good for you. So there's studies that show that static stretching actually makes you run slower. So just imagine if you're stretching right before your run, you're doing a lot of toe holds or you're, stretching your arms out or whatever, your muscles actually produce less force because they're longer now. Instead of being very short and ready to fire very fast, you lengthen them out when you stretch. So this causes you to run a lot slower with decreased speed. So I highly recommend not doing any sort of static stretching. If you want to do dynamic stretching, yeah, that's great if you want to warm your body up. And I highly recommend starting out slower. So when I ran, actually, I didn't do any stretching at all. We just kind of went for it and then just started running, but very slowly. So if static stretching is not really good for you, what about dynamic stretching, like jumping jacks or just moving your body like this, right? Is that going to help? Well, I found another meta study which compiled a ton of studies on dynamic stretching. And yeah, there was really no evidence of dynamic stretching on preventing injuries or helping in the race at all. So it's your call, guys. If you want to do some stretching, I highly recommend not static stretching. If you want to do dynamic stretching to warm your body up, yeah, that's great. Or just start up very slow. Start your runs just running out much, much slower than you normally would, which is what I did. Tip number 5 is to use the run-walk method. So this method was pioneered by an Olympian named Jeff Galloway. So you can use this method when you're running longer distances, or even if you're starting out and you're uncomfortable running for, longer than a mile or two. You can actually break your run into running and walking periods. So what I mean by this is you start off running, right? You run for like a minute to up to 10 minutes, and then you take a walk break for anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes. Now, when you use the run-walk method, you're going to cycle through the periods of running and walking, and this is basically going to last your entire run. And this actually helps a lot because not only does it help prevent injury rates, it actually also helps your muscle soreness after a long race, but also it benefits you mentally because you feel a little bit more mentally clear. It helps break up the long, repetitive running bouts. And also you get kind of the second win. So if you feel like you're about to give up, just take a little bit of walking break. Give your body a little bit of time to relax. And you can even run a lot faster once you're done with the walking period. And then you continue to run. So yeah, I use this method to actually run my marathon. I didn't run all the way. I used a little bit of walking here and there, just to kind of help me on the long run. Step number 6, oh my gosh, every single runner knows about this problem, and that problem is the first mile. Now, when you're running the first mile, you might have a feeling in your gut that's like kind of achy, or your bones might be creaking, or you're mentally foggy and you're like, oh, I don't want to run. This running kind of sucks. This first mile is the hardest mile ever. But you guys got to know that this is totally normal. Every single run that, well, I mean, not every run, but a lot of the runs that I do, the first mile really sucks. But this first mile is kind of a lie. There's a phrase, and the phrase is never judge a run by the first mile. Because the first mile is where all these bad things start coming up. Your body's hurting, you're mentally foggy. After that, your body will acclimate. Your mind will get used to the running. And then you'll actually likely start enjoying the run. So if you're first starting out, if you've never run a mile before, start running the mile. And then once you get past that barrier, you're going to ease into the running a lot more easier. The runs will be much easier, so you don't have to worry. Step number 7 is to make running a habit. So if you're in this for the long haul and you want to make running a habit and not something that you just do for a month and just totally give up, then you got to make it a habit. And to make running a habit, it's pretty simple for me. So first of all, you got to make running a habit. When I was running up to my marathon, I was running like 4, 5, 6 times a week, depending on my routine. And I would just always do this at 5 p.m. Why 5 p.m.? Because it's right before dinner and it's convenient for me. So whatever time works for you, but just make sure you do it consistently. And if it's not consistent, you probably won't develop a habit. And the second thing I did was I made running very easy. So what I mean by that is I had my clothes right next to my bed, my running gear. So I had my running shoes, my socks, my shorts, my shirt, my hat, whatever. I made it all prepared for me. So that means whenever it comes time to my running at 5 p.m., I just go to my bed and then it would be right there, right next to my bed. I just put it on and then I just go out for a run. So it wasn't very difficult. If you make it hard for yourself, if all your running gear is like buried underneath all your clothes in the closet, how likely it is are you to run? Probably it's going to be a lot harder, right? The next thing I did to make it a habit was I tracked my progress. So I use an app like Strava, and I actually was able to track every single mile that I ran. And I can see the time that I ran gradually increasing, so it kind of gamified running for me. And it was actually very nice because I can see my progress increasing. Whereas, if you don't track your progress, how do you know you're getting better? Only mentally? So track your progress one way or another. You can use a journal just to write down your goals and your progress, or use an app. I highly recommend Strava because that's what I use. The next thing I did was I reward myself. So after a long run, you really got to reinforce the habit by doing something that you really like. So after I ran, I would just eat a couple bananas, make a smoothie or whatever, and then that'd be just my enjoyment, just a small little thing like that. So you got to constantly associate running with a dopamine boost. Step number 8 is I recommend running with a plan. There's actually a study that I found that beginner runners, whenever they run by themselves without a plan, they tend to get injured more often than normal. So if you actually follow a structured plan, you're less likely to get injured. So if you're looking for a very structured, very good routine for any level, whether you want to run a 5K, 10K, half marathon, or even a full marathon, I highly recommend this one site called Hal Higdon. This guy has a ton of plans that you guys can follow. His plans are super, super good. I took a look through them and wow, they are absolutely amazing. So I'll link that in the description. You guys can check that out. And then I highly recommend following a plan instead of running by yourself. The next step is you got to find a good running shoe. A lot of people think they can just run in their normal shoes that they buy from Walmart or whatever, but really a running shoe can go a long way. So I found this study of 103 runners who used 3 different shoes and their injury rates were so different. So one group was assigned a neutral shoe, which is a neutral running shoe, the Nike Pegasus 28. The second group was assigned a minimalist shoe, like a Vibrant 5-finger Bicula. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But the third group was assigned a partial minimalist shoe, so kind of a hybrid between the two. And the group that had the least amount of injuries were those with the actual neutral running shoe. So yeah, actually picking the right shoe matters. I have a link in the description if you want to check out the best running shoe for you. Go ahead, check it out. I wrote a lot about running shoes, so I'm pretty much an expert. The last tip I have for you guys is to actually join a run. Now, there are a lot of local running events probably near you, and you can even join online or virtual runs just in your neighborhood or run in the park or something. This gives you accountability and it gives you something to look forward to and try to overcome. But if I didn't sign up for that marathon, I probably wouldn't really be so into running as I am now. So give yourself some accountability, join something, and even bring a friend if you want, because it really does help to have someone running next to you besides running for yourself. So yeah guys, I hope this video was super helpful for you. That was not everything I learned from my running seafood, by the way. There's a link in the description on my website, fearlesswithin.com/running. Check it out for a complete comprehensive guide. I wrote a ton of words in this article, so go ahead, check it out. It's completely free. And because this is a new channel, please hit the like button and subscribe. It would really help me, and let me know if you want any specific video, and I can probably make it in the near time future. So as always guys, stay fearless and stay strong, and have an awesome day.